2022. It is about 3:03 p.m. The Senate Finance and Policy Education Committee will come to order. For the record, we have a quorum, not that we need one today. Members, we are continuing our conversation with the Department of Education regarding the what has become known as, we'll say for short, the FOF scandal, the Federal Government Food and Nutrition fraud that took place outside of MDE, and in which the FBI has executed search warrants and continues to investigate that fraud. I will state, like I have in the previous hearings, that we are not accusing the department of any fraud or wrongdoing, nor the individuals that are here today to testify. They have graciously agreed to show up, which we appreciate. But we do have a duty and responsibility not only to the public, but we have the authority to offer some oversight to the department and the operations therein, see what it is we can do to maybe correct the problem. But before we do that, we have to know how it happened, what happened, when it happened, so we can get at it. So with that, members, we have two individuals today, two members, long-time servants of the state and for the department, Assistant Commissioner Darren Corte, and then Monica Herrera, correct? She has been with the department quite some time as well. It is my understanding, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but we asked them to testify specifically because they head up or in charge of the specific area of food nutrition and other areas in the department. Previously, just a step back, we had Commissioner Mueller on before us on April 4th, and then CFO Denise Anderson on April 6th. So today we have the Food Nutrition Department in front of us, and hopefully we can we'll all get through this. It's not easy. It's pretty difficult. But I know Mr. Corte has been with the department for quite some time. He's an attorney, and reading through all the court documents, you've had a difficult year to say the least, among others. So with that, we've got a number of questions for you, Mr. Corte, then we're going to move to Ms. Herrera, all right? We'll try not to cross any lines here, but Mr. Topple, 3 times, I'll get it correct, is here to help out. All right. Thank you again for showing up, being here for us. I just want to start out, and this will be for Mr. Uni. Maybe we'll start with Mr. Uni first. It's kind of a background question. I'll ask it again. Something that would be helpful to us was at least part of our request that we made on March 4th, I believe it was, for certain documents. Some of those documents were site applications. We understand that each site, each vendor that delivers food has applications they make through the department. We had requested to see those, get copies of those, some other documents in that data request as well. But those we'd really like to see to kind of get an understanding of what it is the sites have to go through to get approved before they work with the sponsors. So, Mr. Uni, is there some update? I know it's a lot of data, you got a lot going on, but at least the applications to those sites made to the department, I'm sure they're on file somewhere, correct?
Mr. Chair, members, just for the record, my name is Adosh Uni. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Department of Education, and you've kind of hit the nail on the head that it's a large amount, and I'll defer to our counsel, Mr. Talbot, there. But one thing I wanted to know before I defer is, in conversations with staff, we were under the understanding that Mr. Corte and Ms. Herrera would be allowed some time to provide some opening statements. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I'll defer to Mr. Talbot to answer questions on the data request.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've pulled the site applications. We're going to have our data practices team send you an email about the format of that data to make sure it matches what you want. I anticipate that email will happen this evening or tomorrow. Okay. And then you should be able to sort of page through all that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Temple.
One other note, I will note your data request included a request for 990s for the sites, and I've been informed that those forms are not requested or required as part of the site application. So there
Okay.
won't be, when we deliver, there won't be any sort of 990 forms attached to the
Okay.
applications.
I'll just do a quick follow-up. Then could we get those 990s? Well, I mean, I suppose we can go online and get the 990s, I suppose. All right, thank you. So, Mr. Corte, a few minutes for your opening comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Darren Cordy, and I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Student Support Services at the Minnesota Department of Education. I will begin with a few prepared remarks and then turn it over to my colleague, Monica Herrera, for her remarks. In my role as Assistant Commissioner, I oversee the Minnesota Department of Education Special Education Division, the Assistance and Compliance Division, the Nutrition Program Services Division, the Charter Center, and the Office of the General Counsel. I have worked at MDE for over 10 years and have served the last 7 years as Assistant Commissioner. Prior to my time at MDE, I worked here for this body, for the Minnesota Senate, for the Education Committee, both as Committee Administrator as well as Nonpartisan Senate Counsel. I am a licensed attorney by trade, and I began my career by working as a staff attorney for Chicago Public Schools. In March of 2020, the education world as we knew it was turned upside down as a result of the spread of COVID-19, which forced the closure of our school buildings. We knew very little about the virus at the time, other than we knew it spread easily, and it was, in some cases, deadly. People were advised not to gather in groups. We were introduced to the concept of social distancing. People were even disinfecting their groceries. And at the same time, there were mass layoffs and record high unemployment. Families that traditionally did not rely on the community and food nutrition programs that we operate found themselves in desperate need of access to food. Families were scared, and there was much uncertainty. What happens if a parent gets COVID-19? What happens if their child gets COVID-19? How is the child going to learn virtually? How are we going to pay our bills? And for many parents, where is our child's next meal going to come from? In the course of just a few days, MDE staff sprung into action. Then Deputy Commissioner Mueller was deployed to lead the agency's COVID mitigation and response. All other issues were triaged by various teams and escalated to executive leadership up to and including Commissioner Ricker as needed. We developed a model for distance learning so that students could continue to learn safely. We figured out how to get services to students who need them, like special education services. And perhaps most importantly, we ensured that hungry children continued to have access to healthy and nutritious meals. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk with you today about our programs, our work, and our amazing staff and public servants that I have the opportunity to work with every day. Senator Chamberlain, we've worked together on legislation in the past. I think together we were able to get the first ever dyslexia specialist hired at MDE. So I think that you know my commitment to the students, families, and communities of the state of Minnesota. I'm here to be transparent about our work and to answer all of your questions that I'm able to answer. Thank you again for having me. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Herrera.
Thank you, Ms. Cordy. Mr. Cordy, I will again, I do acknowledge your service and your work over the years, and you're starting in Chicago. So, Ms. Herrera, thank you. Welcome to the committee.
Mr. Chair, thank you for inviting me to discuss the amazing work our division is doing. My name is Monica Herrera. I'm the Director of Nutrition Program Services at the Department of Education. I've been the director for a little over 8 years. Prior to joining MDE, I worked at various nonprofit, local government, and state agencies, including the University of Minnesota Extension Services. Regardless of the position I held, the focus of my work has been to increase the capacity of organizations to better serve the needs of their constituents, and more specifically, the needs of children in the community. In my role as division director, I have the privilege of supporting the work of about 52 staff. I work closely with the management team of 4 supervisors and multiple team leads with program and business expertise in the nutrition programs and federal funds we administer. This includes the United States Department of Agriculture, or USDA as we commonly refer to it, national school breakfast and lunch programs, summer food service programs, child and adult food care program, and USDA foods. For all our application and claim reimbursement activities, we use a technology called Cyber-Linked Interactive Child Nutrition System, or CLICS, and I say that up front because we'll talk a lot about it. To provide context for the program scope, every year we work with about 2,000 sponsors that provide oversight to over 10,000 sites. And a site is defined as the place in the community where food is actually given to a child. And bring in over $450 million, and that's a pre-COVID number, dollars to support organizations in feeding children engaged in learning activities in schools, community-based nonprofits, and public institutions. During COVID, we also administered over 100 USDA waiver flexibilities into our work. The intent of these waivers was to work with partners to assure all children had access to nutritious food as COVID impacted our families, institutions, and communities. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss our programs, and I will be happy to respond to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Herrera, and again, thank you for your time and service as well. I also understand, we understand it was difficult times, but somehow the FBI found their way here, and some of the claims are $250 million or more. So we got to get into it. So first, Mr. Cordy, like I said, we'll start with you. Trying to establish a chain. We've been trying to establish a chain and some sort of leadership structure about what went on and how it proceeded. With no disrespect, it's not been clear thus far. We understand the commissioner before Commissioner Mueller was Commissioner Ricker. And then at that time, it was Commissioner Mueller. Now Commissioner Mueller was Deputy Commissioner then. So we're just trying to establish, as you may have heard, and understand that chain. So when it's, in your deposition into the court documents in the lawsuit, you said the commissioner was not in the, quote, loop. Well, you may not have used that word. I threw it in there. Regarding the FOF issue. This was part of the challenge to get her, to bring her in for a deposition. I understand there's legal precedent for not doing that, but your conversation was, your response was you updated her every now and then, but she wasn't in the daily operations. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. When Commissioner Mueller became commissioner, she was briefed on the Feeding Our Future case. The day-to-day decisions in terms of legal strategy for that case were made in consultation with myself, the nutrition team, and the Attorney General's office. As I said, I believe in the deposition, I did keep the commissioner up to date on what those decisions were, but we weren't necessarily bringing daily litigation strategy decisions to her for decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Cordy. Did you update as the crisis started, late in March of 2020, and Commissioner Ricker was there then, did you have daily, weekly meetings with Commissioner Ricker to update her on the issue?
Mr. Chair, yes. I can't necessarily speak to the frequency right now because we were just meeting constantly round the clock on issues and triaging them as they came up, particularly early in the pandemic and school closure. So yes, as we started to see some red flags in the unexplained growth and in June or July, August of 2020, we did inform Commissioner Ricker at that time.
Which, I'm sorry, just for clarification, Mr. Cordy, Commissioner Ricker, so when it started, I'll get to another point here in a second. When it started, did you meet with Commissioner Ricker or Deputy? Who did you report to in that immediate first month, 2 months, as things were ramping up and going crazy regarding food nutrition? Who was it?
As soon as the pandemic started, as I mentioned in my opening statements, Deputy Commissioner Mueller was kind of deployed full-time to be working on the school COVID-19 mitigation and response. And so at that time, I began directly reporting to Commissioner Ricker.
Okay, to Ricker.
Correct.
All right, thank you. So at the beginning, it was Commissioner Ricker. I just want to clarify something else, a couple sub-questions here to this. Is when MDE's CFO, Ms. Anderson, was here, said your office managed and approved the site applications. Is that correct? So your division, you or someone that reported to you, got the site applications, the pre-approved site applications, and reviewed them and made final approval. So was that your division that approved the site applications?
Mr. Chair, that would be the Nutrition Program Services Division, which Ms. Herrera is the director of.
Okay, so that question is more for her than when we get, okay.
Mr. Chair, yes, she'd be able to explain that process better than I
Okay.
could.
Who, just for a quick sub-follow-up, but there was approvals, somebody in the department had to approve those sites, correct? So when the application came up to you, to your Food Nutrition's agency, department, division, they had to be approved by someone before they were sent out, before they got put in the system, correct? Your
Mr.
department.
Chair, Mr. Chair, I might defer to Ms. Herrera to provide the details on that.
Well, the detail, but it was the department, your agent, your department, correct?
Mr.
Your
Chair,
agency.
yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. Also, when Ms. Anderson was here, it was a little, and again, no disrespect to Ms. Anderson, and she's welcome to join us again if she'd like. But if I remember correctly, we were trying to get to the higher level and work down, but she said there were people in her agency, her department, that worked with your department. Who did you work with in the financial department as far as, I mean, there is crossover there, so who is your direct contact and team member in the financial department?
Mr. Chair and members, again, I think that would be a question that would be better suited for Ms. Herrera, since she was more kind of working in the day-to-day operations of the program, and I was more in an oversight capacity.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right. Now, a couple baseline questions, and we'll see where you go with this one. So what we're trying to establish is that, as we talked with, more specifically with Ms. Anderson, the CFO, was that I mean, everybody knows, in your world, I'm assuming everybody knows your experience, Ms. Herrera's experience, Ms. Anderson is, Ms. Commissioner Mueller is, first year, well, financial people understand risk, right? Some of us go back to Sarbanes-Oxley and what happened there. But we understand risk. So there's an inherent risk to NGOs, nonprofits, and government money flowing through government agencies to nonprofits simply because of reporting and controls and things out in the world. Would you, right? You agree with that? Just a standard higher level of established risk from the out of the box. Do you agree?
Mr. Chair, I would say that, with the school nutrition programs, these are programs that are created so that nonprofit organizations that want to feed children have the ability to do so. So to the extent that, bad actors are introduced to that program, then yes, that creates risk. But the presumption is that people are entering into this program because they want to do well and serve the community, which the vast majority of our sites and sponsors are.
So, forgive me, was that a yes, Mr. Corte?
Mr. Chair, I do acknowledge that there's risk in all of these federal programs. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on that, so this has been going on for a long time, early in the late 1990s through the 2000s. So the GAO in 2019, the GOA, Government Accounting Office, published a report, and we brought it up with Ms. Anderson. In 2019, to the Food Nutrition Services potential for fraud and risk. Was your agency aware of that report? I'm going to make an assumption that that's your world, and you'd have to be aware of that report. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, members, yes, we were aware of that report. It was, and the recommendations in that report were primarily directed to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and not to the states, but yes, we were aware of it.
Right. And, just an editorial comment. The general idea is simply they understood the risk and the problems with inherent in these programs. Okay, thank you. So with all that, Gio, established, understanding the risk, your experience, and then all the new money flowing in, the crisis, the schools locked down, shut down, all the money flowing in, the spigot turned on, and then the waivers coming in. With the established understanding of risk, did that raise your level of concern? Or I'll say for you or for anyone on your team?
Sure, Mr. Chair, I think it's a good opportunity to clarify that about 99.9% of the money that we're talking about here are federal dollars that were appropriated through Congress and given to the states through USDA. So there were a number of decisions made at the federal level before it even got to the states for us to decide about these waivers.
Mr. Cordy, I have the greatest amount of respect for you. I really do. And you're a smart guy. I kind of knew your resume. But that's true. Federal program, federal regs, federal rules. But the rules didn't say that, right? They didn't waive our responsibilities as a state and an agency to make sure that that money was not fraudulently used. That's why they established some of those rules. I've read through the CFRs. I don't have them memorized. I read through them. And the idea is, yeah, we're doing this, but here's the guidelines, the bare minimums you got to do to protect the taxpayers' money and ensure that it gets to the right sources. So I get that. So that was another editorial piece. So forgive me. I've asked the same question to Ms. Anderson and the commissioner as well. A typical scenario like this, the leadership team gets together. They say, we need to meet because we need to talk about all these issues, not just the shutdowns and how we're going to get the schools taken care of and how we're working with HHS and what we're going to do there, but also every agency and every department has a responsibility. So did the leadership team say, crisis, let's meet? Did anybody in the Department of Education say, let's go to a big room, get all of us in there, and talk through this and create an action plan? Was there any such meeting with all the leadership team? That means head of each agency and division, and then deputies and commissioner. I asked the same question of the commissioner and the CFO.
Sure. Mr. Chair, there were dozens and dozens of meetings.
Mr. Corday, was there, I'd really like just one answer. There's obviously there were a lot of meetings, but was there one big meeting to say, look, everybody, we got a problem, and we're going to go down a list, let's talk this out and see what we got to do? Was there a meeting? And then after you answer that, then you can elaborate a little bit.
Sure, Mr. Chair. I can think of at least one large meeting that occurred prior to schools being closed, in which we were all kind of meeting together in Roseville to help kind of the governor's office figure out the executive orders, what needed to happen in terms of all of that. I can't recall at this time if we were discussing the USDA waivers, because I don't think that they were out at that point. I think that those were subsequent conversations to this large group conversation that you're referring to.
So then you'd say there was a subsequent meeting to discuss this particular area. I mean, there were $300 million, there were hundreds of millions of dollars slotted to come through. So and we made this clear. We understand there were a lot of challenges. I'm not trying to say it was easy, but so subsequently, was there a sit down with you and the CFO or that CFO team and your agency? Okay, we got all this money coming in. What do we got to do? What do we need to change? Was there something like that?
Mr. Chair, I can only speak specifically to the nutrition program dollars because, the other dollars around title programs, et cetera, that came in were a little different. The way this program works is we weren't given just one big lump sum of money to spend upfront or distribute to schools. It just comes in as claims and reimbursements are requested. So just to clarify that for the committee. But in terms of the waivers, I mean, there were over 100 waivers that were issued over the course of the pandemic. So as I said, as they came in, there were meetings with nutrition staff, finance staff, and leadership as appropriate to make decisions about those waivers.
Thank you, Mr. Cordy. Okay, I did this with Commissioner Mueller a little bit as well as Ms. Anderson, but I believe it's important that in this, every agency, every organization, large organization, even small ones to an extent, have internal controls. You're aware what they are, to their checks and balances and steps and processes, right, to ensure that this sort of thing doesn't, that money isn't stolen, that fraud isn't committed. Primarily, that's the primary reason for internal controls. That people writing checks aren't authorizing the checks, et cetera, or authorizing invoices and are not then saying, okay, go ahead and pay. So that's part of it. So site visits. So you got a lot of applications after it was decided by the feds and the money would come in. You had the sponsors and you had sites that started making application. At any time in the process, did you or someone in your agency, your division, suggest, okay, we should start checking out these sites? Let's go to the sites, let's check them out. Was there anything like that specifically?
Mr. Chair, I think, as you know, it was brought up in other meetings. Part of one of the waivers was the ability to waive site visits. This was something that we had conversations about at MDE, and in terms of, as you mentioned, risk, balancing the risk of the financial risk versus the health and safety risk of having our staff go into child care centers and after-school care centers to do these site visits. And we certainly did not waive all of our monitoring requirements. Monitoring was occurring, oversight was happening, but at that point we were not doing site visits, in part because they may not have been particularly useful because many sites were doing home delivery at that time, and also because many sites weren't allowing outside people other than just their own students on staff, and many child care centers weren't even letting parents come into the buildings at that time.
Well, just a quick follow-up, thank you. So, but they would be important to help mitigate risk, right? I mean, the federal government says you could do them, should do them. I mean, they're important to it, right?
The federal government, just to be clear, during the pandemics did not necessarily say that we had to do them or should do them. They offered the waiver. But it's one part of a larger monitoring and oversight process. It is one part of it.
I'm still not, no disrespect, but I'm still not clear between your testimony and Ms. Anderson and the commissioner that anybody agrees that site visits are important. I mean, history of fraud, people go to sites, and even sometimes they can be fooled then, but you can only fool someone so long when you go to their site and they claim they're running a $100 million business of cleaning offices, but they have no assets, but somehow they've done it, right? So site visits, and I will say site visits are important for basic accounting and auditing services. That hasn't been made clear from the other two testifiers either, but I'll make, in my opinion, they are from what I have learned in some of my experiences and what I've learned from talking to people. But anyway, I think they're important. I have not got a clear answer from the department on that. So with the federal waivers, the department had, Mr. Cordy, the department had to make decisions on whether they'd accept the waivers or not. And I believe that the department was not required to accept any of the 100 waivers. You could accept them or not. So the decision in the department was to accept, maybe this will be better for Ms. Herrera as well, but you accepted, at least you accepted a lot of waivers. If not all of them, you accepted a lot of waivers. Is there documentation about accepting those waivers? Did somebody, was there a process where a waiver comes in to say, I'm not saying this was you, Ms. Herrera, that it would come into Ms. Herrera, she'd be aware of a waiver. She'd say, okay, we have 3 or 4 waivers from the feds regarding what we're referring to as FNS. And then a decision was made to accept the waiver. Two parts. Who made the decision, who would make the decision to accept a waiver?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify that there's 2 different kinds of waivers we're talking about. So there's ones, first of all, you are correct, that USDA couldn't compel us to accept any of these waivers. It was a decision that we had to make as a state. There were statewide waivers, which we as MDE could accept, and then they would just automatically apply to all sites and sponsors in the state. There were also individual waivers where we as a state could say, yes, we're going to accept this, but individual sites and sponsors would have to apply to MDE to actually take advantage of those waivers. So just wanted to create that clarification.
No, thank you.
For the statewide kind of big blanket waivers, the typical process would be Ms. Herrera and her team would meet, have a discussion about those waivers, make a recommendation to myself, and then that would be, the decision would either be made at my level or in consultation with the commissioner, depending on, how big or broad the waivers were.
So is there a audit trail? Is there a document train that says, that shows that decision process?
Mr. Chair, all of the decisions for accepting waivers were communicated through, I'm not sure if it was Ms. Herrera or anybody from her staff, but to the Midwest Regional Office for USDA. So yes, we have a record for all of that.
Okay, so there's a record. So in the end, we're not going to ask for all those documents. We might ask for a couple, just to see. So in the end, who would sign off on that acceptance of that waiver? Was that you, Commissioner, Deputy, Ms. Herrera? Who would sign off on that?
Mr. Chair, it was typically Ms. Herrera in her role as director.
Okay, so Ms. Herrera signed off on those, and after consultation and discussions, and those discussions would include you and/or the deputy and/or the commissioner, depending on. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just to
Yes.
clarify, for the most part, the deputy, Commissioner Mueller at that time was not typically a part of those conversations. We were going directly to Commissioner Mueller at that point.
Commissioner Ricker? Or
I'm sorry, Commissioner Ricker at that point.
All right.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Corday. So just a little retrospective then. Knowing what we know now, regrettably, would site, in your mind, Mr. Corte, would site visits, more extensive and comprehensive site visit plan been a good idea? Retrospective, I'm saying 2020 now.
Sure. Mr. Chair, it's hard to speak in hypotheticals because we have over almost 11,000 sites in the state and a limited amount of staff to do those visits. So it would be hard for us to have, done something as comprehensive as every sites or all sites. We also, site monitoring process is not something that's necessarily used to, uncover fraud or criminal activity. We're not investigators. It's to ensure compliance with federal regulations and issue findings and corrective action. So it's hard to say in retrospect whether or not something like that would have changed anything in this equation.
Thank you, Mr. Cordy. Just to step back for a sec, I know both, I can't say Commissioner, but I know Ms. Anderson had said that, maybe Commissioner Mueller alluded to it, I don't want to put words in her mouth, though, that, and you mentioned it, that you consider the health and safety of your staff about this, which we all understand and agree. But just an aside, the kids and parents were expected to go pick up food, so they had to have some contact at some point, however limited, whether it's in cars or going by a door or a window and picking up their food. So, but it was still considered too risky for the staff? I don't mean to be rude here, but I'm trying to, those folks were going to pick up food, and they were out there working, but the department said it was too risky to go in a car to some of these sites.
Mr. Chair, members, first of all, to clarify on the waivers, it wasn't necessarily for the child to show up to get the food under the waivers. A parent could do that themselves. But, certainly not a scientist. My understanding of this whole thing, at least at the time, was, the duration and proximity that you're in contact with a person who potentially has COVID is what kind of drives transmission. If you're just picking something up quickly, that's inherently safer than us being on site, spending time in the building, working closely with staff on site visits, because that's really what a site visit is. It's not just sitting in a car.
Right. Now, thank you, Mr. Cordy. So you had mentioned there's 11,000 sites. Agree that's a lot. Most are here in the metro area. And most, a lot, not most, I'll clarify that. Strike most, a lot of them popped up fairly quickly. So we go back to the risk assessment. If you have a risk assessment and a plan to execute all this for vetting and executing this, there'd be a hierarchy of risk, and at certain points, red flags start to pop up, and you say, okay, we better check on this. So, from documents and newspaper reports, it's been established that by July 2020, not long after this all started, we're aware the Safari restaurant claimed that it was serving or providing 5,000 meals a day to children. That month, someone at MDE conducted an administrative review of the Safari restaurant. So that number seemed to pop up a red flags. So would you agree, Mr. Corte, that we would agree that you couldn't get all 11,000 sites, but you have this, if you had an established internal control system and a vetting plan, then you'd work through that, and then different things happen. When those things happen, certain things are triggered, and then you do things differently. So you couldn't get to all 11,000 sites, but some of those sites were well established and been around for a while. But a lot of them weren't. Safari Restaurant was a new one, risk. A lot of money coming in, risk. Safari Restaurant probably didn't have a lot of experience dealing with all the Fed regs, although they were food service. And then you had 5,000 kids, flags pop up. You did an administrative review for that one, but you didn't go out in a car. Would have been too much. The question is, in retrospect, would have been a good idea if you look at all this in review now, an AER, an after action review, would have been a good idea going forward to say, this happens, we're going to go drive by in a car and see if 5,000 people are going in there a day or driving by there. Now can you keep that to as yes or no? You're doing good, but.
Mr. Chair, if I could provide a little context, and I will try and do my best to provide it.
Well, Mr. Corte, if you did an administrative review, so that warranted someone to take an extra look. Something happened inside your department that said, we better do an administrative review in July of 2020. Should those administrative reviews include a drive-by at least to see if people are going in and coming out at that rate?
Mr. Chair, again, many of these sites were not doing on-site meal pickups. They were doing meal delivery. They were doing meal delivery or meal pickup at odd hours, evenings, early mornings, weekends. So,
Mr. Cordy, I knew this would be difficult because you're smart. You're diverting here. I'm talking about this site specifically, and if you went there in a car, someone went there in a car, they could have sat outside and said, you could have inquired, are you delivering the food? Let me see where I'm going to follow you to at least 10 delivery sites. So that's the point here. It triggered an administrative review. Safari Restaurant, not all the others, I understand there's differences. It triggered at least, if someone had, perhaps that would have been stopped at that point, at least at that location.
Mr. Chair, perhaps it would have been helpful, but a couple things to put context around. The primary monitoring of sites is supposed to be by the sponsor, in this case, Feeding Our Future. We did initially deny Safari Restaurant as well as some other for-profit restaurants participating as sites because traditionally they were not able to in the program.
Right.
And immediately we got legal pushback from Feeding Our Future about our authority to deny those sites. And eventually the USDA told us we had to approve them. So to some extent, we did try and take an extra look at Safari and other for-profit restaurants, but ultimately, under the regulations, didn't have the authority to deny their application.
Okay, I'll go with that. So let's say the USDA denied your right to deny, and you issued it. Normally, the for-profits would be excluded. I read through that part, and I understand. But at some point, now, I'm going to say, Mr. Cordy, Ms. Herrera, it is not sufficient to say it's all FOF or all the other sponsors. Ultimately, the money starts with the feds to the department and then out. So there is a responsibility because the final application reviews and approvals are the department's responsibility. So even though you had to approve it, you still flagged it for administrative review because you thought something was wrong, and that's where it ended. But it didn't end there because we know that the money they weren't serving the kids. But we'll leave it at that. I get there's complications and other factors, but I'm just trying to get like a going forward sort of thing that, be a good idea to put on that red flag list that, you go out and check those sites. God help us, we don't have this again, right? So, just to clarify, but when they did do that, the administrative review came up. Did it raise a red flag for you or anyone in the department, in your agency, your division, I guess?
Mr. Chair, I don't have the information about the administrative review in front of me right now, so I'm unable to speak to that specifically.
All right. All right. Now, a little different switch. I know we get obsessed with sites. So you're familiar with this one, Mr. Corday. In April of 21, there was a Pioneer Press article. You're quoted as saying, there are, quote, there are a lot of nonprofits reporting large numbers of meals served, which has created a fraud risk. Now, this is a year later. This is April of 28. Is that a correct statement?
Mr. Chair, I do appreciate the opportunity to clarify that statement because if you look at the actual quotation marks in there, that fraud is not in quotation marks. I don't remember saying the word fraud. The discussion I remember having with the reporter was around program integrity and compliance with regulations and the ability to explain the large growth we were seeing, but I don't remember using the word fraud in that.
Okay, good point. Thank you. We'll check on it. Integrity, program integrity. I'll throw it out there. To me, it means, well, it's a nice way to say fraud. Now, I'm not saying that's what you said, but you're a smart guy, and I think it's a nice way to say fraud. But you were concerned about program integrity, which means are things coming apart? Were things coming apart? Were people using the money correctly? Were there dollars going out and doing things they weren't supposed to be doing? Was the money and the meals going to who they were supposed to go to? So say you used an integrity, program integrity, but it was program integrity you were concerned about, correct? I remember seeing that in the piece too, but we'll check on the other word for you.
Mr. Chair, that is correct, and, that is one part of it, is making sure that the meals that are being claimed are actually served, but it's also making sure that the meals that are claimed are allowable meals, that they're meeting the meal pattern, that the ingredients are what they're supposed to be. So it is just one part of it, but yes.
Thank you. So, a few more. So do you believe, with all that has transpired in the last 2 years with this program, that there was a potential for fraud, given what you know, given what was going on? Do you believe there was a potential for fraud? Or let's use your word, do you believe there's a potential for the integrity of the program to be challenged and fall apart?
Well, Mr. Chair, I mean, in light of the federal investigation that we've become aware of and the search warrants that were executed, I think that obviously raises concerns about fraud in the program for us. But, up until that point, we didn't have an inside view of what the federal investigation was. We had raised our concerns with USDA when we saw irregularities, and then eventually the FBI, but, we didn't have evidence of fraud until the search warrants were executed.
Thank you. So you know what follows. So you questioned program integrity in April of 21. In July 29, when you were embroiled in this lawsuit that was no fun for you, no doubt, the deposition, you said, I'm paraphrasing, we have the quote, but I'm paraphrasing. They asked if they had asked the question twice, the second time was rephrasing it. They asked, did you suspect fraud? And your answer was no. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, that was correct.
All right. Now, just clarify, okay. So program integrity before, and you did not suspect the fraud in that deposition, okay.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes, Mr. Corte.
if I could just clarify.
Yes.
Part of what happened there was within 2 days after that Pioneer Press article coming out, Feeding Our Future added a claim to their lawsuit for defamation against MDE, against me as a state employee and me personally as well. So, without being able to speak to legal strategy, this was a legal proceeding under oath, and I couldn't speak to speculation, I couldn't speak to hypotheticals, I could only speak to what we had evidence of, and again, we're not an investigatory agency, we didn't have evidence of fraud at that time, so I couldn't, under oath, say that I suspected fraud.
Thank you. But you see how that causes a little confusion, right? Program integrity, we don't suspect fraud. After a year of it been going on and all these things happening, it creates a little confusion and things that we're trying to clear up. But you see how that might cause some confusion for people? Okay. So when there was suspicion of fraud or challenges to the program integrity, was it immediately reported to the Attorney General's office?
Mr. Chair, we began having conversations with the Attorney General's office about Feeding Our Future, particularly in the summer of 2020. We were getting some pushback from their attorney, Reithad Watkins, on a number of items that we were working with them on, and so we did flag that with the Attorney General's office at that time and continued to be in communication with them leading up to the lawsuit.
Yeah, but they didn't file the lawsuit until November 2020. So you knew that there was challenges with FOF. They were not very easy to deal with, obviously. But if you suspected some problems, the CFRs and the regs say that if you suspect or believe that there's fraud or they misreported information that you could and should, you must shut it down immediately. So what I've learned now, I mean, what I'm learning or what I'm hearing from Commissioner and from Ms. Anderson and from yourself is that for that first year, sometime through March of 21, April of 21, even to July 21 with the deposition, that nobody at the department suspected wrongdoing on the part of FOF, Feeding Our Future.
Mr. Chair, I would not say that that's accurate. We raised concerns about the unexplained growth of Feeding Our Future in the summer with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Midwest Regional Office. We escalated those concerns soon after to the Office of the Inspector General. It was soon after, as you mentioned, that the lawsuit was filed against us, and we continued to kind of make our case in court about what we were trying to do to regulate the growth of that and verify that the growth was accurate and was allowable, and the meals being served were allowable and ability to be claimed. Unfortunately, we hit some roadblocks with the court and our ability to do that, especially with the stop pay that we issued in April of 2021. So we were trying to raise red flags as we could, but unfortunately, our authority under the regs to, as you said, shut them down was just not there based on the lawsuit and the information we were getting from USDA.
Okay, he's going to be a little tricky, a little delicate. So is there a legal responsibility incumbent upon someone like yourself to report suspicions of wrongdoing or fraud to the AG at some point?
Mr. Chair, as I said, we are in constant communication with the AG's office about our concerns around Feeding Our Future in this case.
Okay. So others, the commissioner and the Ms. Anderson, CFO, and you have made reference that the department does not have, quote, investigatory authority or ability. What do you mean by that? I'm going to allow it to expand for a little bit on that.
Sure. Mr. Chair, as we were talking about fraud is a criminal act, and we don't have authority, we're not a law enforcement agency to investigate fraud. What we have authority to monitor and have oversight over is compliance with the federal regulations. To the extent that we find things in those monitoring and oversight activities that concern us or raise red flags, and we do escalate it to our federal partners who do have that investigative authority, but we do not under the regs or state statute.
Mr. Cordy, though, you have the state auditor, you have the AG, the OIG. I mean, even if you don't have investigators on your staff, you have that ability. And certainly as a comparison, if there's, say, some violations in the state stuff, say MCA results or something coming from the districts, I mean, certainly your agency is required to do something, right? You contact somebody, right? So you do have some authority to contact state auditors, the AG in this case, or you'd look into potential wrongdoing for testing if that were the case, right?
Mr. Chair, I don't oversee testing, so I can't speak to how that would work. But for this program, we did, as I said, report it to the Attorney General rather early on, as well as USDA and OIG, and then eventually the FBI and OSA and the others you've mentioned.
But was that AG conversation simply about the lawsuit and not about fraud? Oh, here we go.
So, Mr. Chair, just on advice of Mr. Tauble here, he reminded me that I can't divulge any conversations that we had with the Attorney General's office because of the attorney-client privilege, so I can't speak to what those conversations were with the AG's office.
But apparently they weren't about fraud.
I'm sorry, I can't speak to those conversations, Mr. Chair.
All right. Did you or the commissioner, did you have a follow-up meeting, say, a lot of stuff going on here? We better tell the governor. Did someone at some point say we should talk to the governor's office and let them know? You talked to the mayor's office in May of 21. So did somebody say we better notify the governor that we have some difficulties here?
Mr. Chair, as I was working in my legal capacity prior to Mr. Tauble coming on board, I did provide monthly legal briefings to the governor's office. Again, I can't speak to the content of those in my role as an attorney, but I can say I was giving them updates about the Feeding Our Future case and the case generally.
Thank you. So a couple more, and then we're going to Ms. Herrera. So Commissioner Mueller, and I believe previous testimony, you have said it today, that MDE, quote, escalated the issue, unquote, of irregularities in the food program to the USDA Office of the Inspector General in October of 2020 when the law, just before FOF filed a lawsuit. Can we get a copy of that document that said, OIG, we think we have problems here? Can we get a copy of that as part of our data request if we just send you a letter, an email?
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that there's physical, written documentation of that meeting. It may have been a phone call, it may have been a Teams meeting, but if you send us an email or a letter, add to that data request, and we can certainly look into that for you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the same question I asked Commissioner Mueller and Ms. Anderson regarding the FBI. So who notified the FBI? Can you tell me that?
I waited as long as I could.
I had to be fair. I had to ask the same question.
Yeah, but again, we won't discuss the conversations we've had with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
So we don't know if it was a single person or a group decision to contact the FBI, a whistleblower or a department decision to contact the FBI, and we can't comment that, right?
No, Chair Gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. So a couple of wrap-ups, and I thank you for your time. So right now, documents I read were possibly $250, $300 million, perhaps, was misappropriated by various individuals at the sites, taking that money, submitting false claims, getting reimbursed, and then using that money to buy homes and offices and cars and a variety of things, and then community not being served. So people have, previous testifiers have said, quote, the process worked, unquote. Did the process work, Mr. Corte, to prevent hundreds of millions of dollars from being misallocated?
Mr. Chair, I believe that our staff did everything in their power to try and slow the growth of these programs, or at least to try and give us some time to understand what was happening in the field as it was happening so rapidly. Like I said, unfortunately, we were not given the authority and backing of the USDA in order to do that, and under the lawsuit, we were required by the judge in that case to continue to move things along and approve site applications in a timely manner and not stop their payments. So I think if those things hadn't happened, we could have mitigated this sooner, but that was what we were up against.
Thank you, Mr. Corday. Kind of a tag on, well then, so if the process worked, it would then follow that nothing should change, correct?
Mr.
That
Chair.
the process works so well that nothing needs to change internally to prevent another $300 million from going that way.
No, Mr. Chair, no, of course. We operate as an agency in an environment of continuous improvement, and there's always things that we can do better, and we certainly are looking at everything that happened throughout the past 2 years and pulling that together to make sure that we have a clear picture of what happened, what's going to happen next, and to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
I thank you, Mr. Corday. I think I have one more question for you, and this is about on time. So the department has testified that in May of 2021, Feeding Our Future submitted, quote, "a corrective action plan for serious deficiency," unquote. Further, the department testified it accepted the FOF corrective action plan in June of 21. The same month, in June of 21, MDE says it, quote, "began working with the FBI." So here's the question. So they had you had a lot of problems with FOF. They were suing you. Apparently you had questions about program integrity, unquote. And then you had this corrective action plan. Then you began working with the FBI in May. So why would the department accept the plan when the suspicions had not been resolved and currently working with FBI? So why would you continue to work with FOF at that time if there were suspicions that there were problems?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you might recall from this as well, too, as part of the case, we were found in contempt of court and had sanctions issued against us because the judge believed we were not approving things in a timely manner. So in this case, to not pose further risk to the agency, if Feeding Our Future had met the terms of their corrective action plan, which Ms. Herrera may have more information on than I do, then we would have had no choice but to accept that plan and move on. If they had completed it, we wouldn't have had any standing, particularly in the court case, to stop it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Corte. Just looking at one thing here. Did the department or you, FOF, there were problems with FOF. Here's a final question for you, one or two. Did you receive reports as early as 2018 about problems with Feeding Our Future? Did you or someone in the department in your division receive information that suggested Feeding Our Future was not on the up and up? Did anybody in the department receive that information?
Mr. Chair, I do recall us receiving one letter from another sponsor. I can't remember if they were pointing at Feeding Our Future in particular, or more of concerns around the program in general. And I also can't remember the timing quite on that, if it was the same timing that you're talking about. But that's the one that I recall. We do receive a number of complaints regularly through the division, so Ms. Herrera may be aware of others, but that's the one that sticks out in my mind.
And so I'm going to ask the same question to you, Ms. Herrera, because that would be probably right in your wheelhouse. But I've seen documents that suggest there were concerns about the way FOF was founded and then some of the follow-up from the department. I'm not passing judgment one way or another, but if someone comes up and says, well, here's information that we got and we sent to department, And we were warning them of potential problems, and this is kind of the response we got. But FOF was originally authorized with conditions, correct? I saw that document. I mean, they were authorized with conditions.
Mr. Chair, just leaning over to Ms. Herrera now, I'm not sure that I recall that specifically, but if you could give us some more information about the conditions you're referring to, that might jog our memories.
They were financial conditions, and because they didn't have any financial previous records.
Sure. Mr. Chair, I think what you may be referring to was another multi-site sponsor, Partners in Nutrition. When they initially were applying to be a sponsor, there was kind of a bit of a dispute we had back and forth on their financial stability and integrity prior to them being authorized to be a sponsor, yes.
Okay. So one final question, I promise. This would be for you. That document was signed by Amy Bach, too, but just a refresher. With condition was signed by Ms. Bach. So with all this that happened and the fallout, I understand that there were three major sponsors: Gargar, Partners in Nutrition, and Feeding Our Future, right? Since the beginning of January now, all three of those sponsorships have been terminated by the department, which in my mind says you can terminate them, and there's always, you can find cause, but there were normal good operators out there. I mean, not all of them were obviously, stealing money. There were good operators distributing food to needy people. Is there a plan in place? Is the department currently executing a solid plan to take care of those legitimate, to validate them and take care of those legitimate providers? And are you caught up? So is there a plan, and are you caught up?
Sure. Mr. Chair, just to clarify around Partners in Nutrition and Gargar, the move for termination was for both Feeding Our Future and Partners in Nutrition was based on the evidence that was unsealed as part of the search warrant. So we didn't have that prior to then, which is what gave us the ability to act. Also, there are due process rights that still continue to exist for both of those organizations in terms of appeal rights, so termination is not final for either of those. For Gargar, they were a summer sponsor. They applied to be a CSCFP sponsor, and we denied that application. So that's different than termination, just to be clear on the
record. So Gargar was denied for summer. Okay, so let's go to the next level below, but still some legitimate site vendors, right? We understand the definition of that. We're operating and being reimbursed through the sponsors. So are those organizations still being served? Is there a plan to serve them to recover?
Mr. Chair, yes. Shortly after the search warrants were executed, we had set up a separate phone line as well as email line and had dedicated staff staffing those lines for folks who were either under Partners in Nutrition or Feeding Our Future to call in so we could help them find a new sponsor or go through the process of self-sponsoring. We also heard from the community that some people were a little afraid to call into that line because not wanting to get caught up in the federal investigation. So we've been doing a ton of community outreach to try and build trust with the community to show them that, we're here, we want to help you find other sponsors, we want to help you get connected and be a sponsor. Unfortunately, we're also finding a number of these sites that were not serving meals that were in line with the meal pattern. For example, they weren't serving meals, they were just delivering bags of groceries, et cetera. So yes, we have been working with those sites.
So in short, now let me ask you, so you have changed some processes, but let me ask you a question. No disrespect intended to anybody. Do you think it's a good idea to have self-sponsoring sites? In other words, as an internal control, I'm reporting I'm writing the receivable, the invoice, and now I want you to pay me. I'm not only the person doing the ordering, now I'm the person going to receive the money. Is self-sponsoring a good idea for one site to self-sponsor? Or is there someone going to be at the department making sure that's working right? So is that a good idea? Just to,
Mr. Chair, yeah, the ability to be a sponsor and a site at the same time, there's a number of regulatory checks and balances.
I'm going to stop you there.
Okay.
You know what I'm going to say? I read through the CFRs. There's a lot of pages to the CFRs. So please don't share the regulatory stuff, because $300 million, $300 million went somewhere that it wasn't supposed to go. So what I'm asking is, in your mind right now, do you think that you should review the idea of self-sponsoring? Now, that doesn't mean they can't do it, but there have to be other controls around that, correct? I'm not talking about how big the servings are and that. I'm talking about the dollars. We're claiming 500 kids, 500 meals. Now pay us. I mean, there's a conflict there.
Mr. Chair, in the search warrants that were executed in the sites that were identified, these were not self-sponsored
No,
sites.
Mr. Corte, all due respect, I'm talking about, you had mentioned these sites could be self-sponsored, they could find other sponsors. So we'll leave it at that, okay? I mean, but I'll make my personal opinion, a quick editorial comment. I wouldn't think self-sponsoring is a good idea without other internal controls surrounding that. We just had a big sponsor sponsoring numerous sites, and that money disappeared. So we're going to move on to Ms. Herrera, maybe 20 minutes or so for you. But Mr. Cordy, again, thank you for your time and your patience and your willingness to answer questions. Again, we're not accusing you or the department of anything, but it's hard to get my head around some of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Herrera, welcome to the committee. You've been there smiling, Ms. Herrera.
This is kind of interesting, so something to learn, right?
Okay, right. So I'm going to go to some specifics. I might bounce back and forth a little bit. But I'm going to drill down more specifically here, or at least try to, regarding what you do. So you report to Mr. Corte, correct?
Correct.
So your function and your role, you directly supervise and manage and oversee the operations for the sponsors and the sites, correct?
I work with the staff, and we jointly oversee the program implementation and administration.
Okay, that means sponsor applications come to you, the pre-vetted site applications from the sponsor come to you, and you final review. So when you get these applications for sponsors or sites, do you sit down with your team to go over it?
No, we have specific application staff and program expert staff that review those applications. And this, I'll go back to our CLIck system. In our CLIck system, we have a lot of checks and balances and edits that are built into the system. So as people apply for the programs, the system either presents error messages or presents, incomplete applications. So a lot of the initial screening is done through technology, and then staff get involved to provide questions, training, technical assistance if we find a sponsor is not completing the application in a timely way. Because by regulation, we are mandated to process applications within a certain time we have to deny or accept. So there's always a clock on somewhere.
So, Ms. Herrera, do you have a written policy? Do you have a white 3-ring binder, 4 inches thick, 3 inches thick, that says, here's what we do for site applications or for sponsors?
Yes, and keep in mind that.
Well, Ms. Herrera, so you do have
Yes.
you have a process, okay? And it's written down. So just to I'm going to get a little weedy here. On that application, it includes personal information, correct? Name, address.
So I need to separate the difference between sponsor application and a site
Right,
application.
right. So
'cause
let's
they require
stay-
different information.
Let's start with the sites, because that's where there were some challenges. So we know FOF was receiving kickbacks and funneling money out, right? Well, we'll say allegedly because it's still being processed. But for the site applications, name, address, phone number, right, that sort of stuff. Individual, can a site be an individual, or does it need to be an incorporated through the state of Minnesota?
It depends on the program, because different programs have different regulations. And frequently, the sponsor puts their name in the site application, and all we are verifying is the site is eligible to participate in whatever program they're applying for. Because both Summer Food and CACFP at Risk have different eligibility criteria.
Right. So if John Smith wanted to start a program, and he said it depends depends on the program, but they wanted to be a site vendor for these two programs, a CACFP, or the Summer Nutrition Food Program, for those two particular that we're talking about, can that be John Smith, self-proprietor, individual?
Mr. Chair, no. It would have to be a nonprofit, and for CACFP and CACFP at Risk, the site has to provide education and care for children. So it
Okay.
can't just be a person, but they have to prove they are providing some kind of education enrichment activities.
So they have to be incorporated in the state of Minnesota? All right. So you need name, phone number, address, you need state documents, right? Do you need to, or do you search it out? If they say they're a nonprofit, do you just accept it? Or do you go to the state, Secretary of State's website and make sure that they're in good standing?
Mr. Chair, are you talking about the sponsor application, or are you just referring to
The
site?
sites, just the sites.
Okay. So the site applications, again, Clicks does a lot of that background checking. A lot of it has to do with eligibility, if the site itself is located in a high-need area. So that's the first screening. And then the sponsor, if we have questions, the questions go back to the sponsor to say, here are the questions we have about the site, and the sponsor has to clarify those
Okay,
pieces.
thank you, Ms. Herrera. But what I'm getting at is, could a site become, could you be a site vendor delivering food and collecting money? Because the sponsors can keep 15%. That's something I didn't cover earlier, but we covered with Ms. Anderson, that when an organization can keep 10 to 15% of the the money coming through, I mean, we allow that in the state, I think, at 10% or even 5%, for obvious reasons. But that creates an incentive for the sponsor to say, hey, you, come and fill out your paperwork, then I get 15% on the money coming back, and you get paid. So there's an inherent risk there that I should have mentioned earlier, but I digress. So they get to keep the money. So a site, and I think that may have been missed, just an editorial aside. But the site, does the department have a responsibility to, when a site applies, to not just rely on clicks, but would your internal controls require a check to make sure that it's just not someone who popped up last week to get their documents from the state, and I've created a nonprofit before, so it takes a little time to get a couple things done, right? But some of these could pop, and they turned out they could be for-profit too, some of these organizations with this. That's another risk, right? Because they're already in existence, and you wouldn't have to go through the nonprofit process. So an organization pops up overnight rhetorically, but fairly quickly. They have no financial background, no income information, just estimates. Isn't there something in the three-ring binder in the controls, on the process, or in clicks that would say, we don't do that? Or is there something in there that prevents beginners from doing this? Because it takes a lot of work, right? You need a record, you need to know how to deal with federal regs. Is there something in the system to prevent that?
Mr. Chair, when any sponsor joins our program, we go through a lengthy program agreement with them, and they have to say that any site they bring into their sponsorship, they have to meet that they have controls in place at the site, they have staff trained, and then they negotiate whether the sponsor provides the food or the site is going to contract out and do their own vended meal service. So it's all vested primarily in the program
So,
agreement
Ms.
with the
Herrera,
sponsor.
I'm going to switch to Mr. Corte. Does the department not have a responsibility when it's many hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money to go to needy families to not just say, it's a sponsor's responsibility? Isn't there something that says, the buck stops with the department on this, and we have oversight? The department collects the applications, correct? So doesn't the department have some responsibility, Mr. Corte?
Mr. Chair, yeah, it's a shared responsibility between us, the sponsor, and USDA.
Thank you. So I didn't direct that at you, Ms. Herrera. I would think that there has to be something in that binder, because the applications come to the department for sponsors and sites for final approval and sign-off. And if a sponsor, you're just trusting a sponsor to do that, I think it's problematic too. Now, I know there's regs that say you got to check this, that, and the other, but in 2018, my understanding is that people were reporting problems, potential issues with FOF, but they were trusted to do things, trusted to give oversight. And even after some of this other stuff, the legal conditions, they were concerned about legal issues, not you, Ms. Herrera, others, that they still let FOF do things, even after the lawsuit started. So anyway, so to your point again, Ms. Herrera, that you have the three-ring binder, sponsors sign an agreement when they get approved to do certain things. It's a contractual agreement. They're bound to it. My position is that the department, the buck stops with the department, even though the sponsor has some responsibility. So on the site vendors again, so because the sponsors have certain requirements and contractual requirements, the department just kind of signs off on the sites, correct?
The sponsor submits the sites for approval, and then once they are approved, the sponsor works with that site.
So the department has final say on approving of the sites, correct?
If they're eligible, meet program criteria, yes.
Did you deny any sites, deny any applications to any sites?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I do want to add one more thing when you talked about accountability. All of our programs have to resubmit applications on a yearly basis, and then they also go through a pretty extensive administrative reviews every 2 to 4 years, where we do go in and check in much more detail. Again, for multi-site sponsors, those reviews are held at the sponsor level to make sure they're complying with all the duties that they signed off on. So there are multiple places that we do check to make sure all the regulations are being followed.
So, but obviously something failed, correct, Ms. Herrera? Something failed, correct?
We caught it very early, Mr. Chair, because remember, our programs are reimbursable. So somebody applies for a program, they are told whether they are in or not, and then they participate in the program for a month, and then they send us claims into our system. So the earliest we would catch any strange things happening, and by strange I would mean we look at their application, what they were serving, how many kids, and then we start looking at their meal claims. And so the first time we would see those would be 30 to 45 days after.
Okay,
So that's
but-
when we caught things pretty clearly.
So you, So early for you is like 30 to 45 days after they start operations, correct?
That would, Mr. Chair, that would be the earliest we would have any information on what's happening at that site.
So my understanding, thank you, Mr. Herrera, my understanding is that when these applications, now we're waiting to get application documents so we can review those to understand what we're kind of looking at. But my understanding is that when I did the first nonprofit and got that going, you had to put estimates in, right? You estimate numbers and revenues and stuff. So on your application, is it required that, say, Safari Restaurant or whoever put on the estimated number of children they're going to be serving on a daily basis? Did they put that on the document, on the application?
Mr. Chair, that would go into the sponsor application whenever they.
Wait a minute, Ms. Herrera. You make final approval of the sites, correct? Your agency that Ms. Corte is part of, you make their final approval, right?
Yes.
Do you check that number?
Mr. Chair, I want to make sure I understand. Are you talking about the enrollment number?
That when they make first application, they had to put on, they have all the stuff about the site. And they put on there, we estimate we're going to serve 5,000 kids a day. That's on the initial application, correct?
Mr. Chair, I need to separate what happened during COVID versus on regular program, because on the regular program operations, we would reconcile that against the health and safety codes, or if there is usually there is a number.
Well, okay, Ms. Herrera, I understand that part.
Yeah, so during COVID, that number became less relevant.
So, but the number is on there, correct?
Yes.
So when Safari Restaurant, same question I give Mr. Courtney, or any other of these sites that popped up quickly, and you didn't have to check all 11,000, you only had to check the new ones, right? Put on, we estimate we're going to serve 5,000 kids a day, even though we've never served federal meal programs to anybody. But we're going to serve 5,000 kids a day, which exceeds the population of the Wayzata High School. Should that, I know you had an administrative review, but that wasn't until July 2020. I mean, when you see that in your mind, is there something in the internal controls that say you should check that?
Mr. Chair, I guess I want to clarify that Safari was a restaurant through Feeding Our Future. So they could have been a vendor providing meals to multiple sites, or they could have been a site in themselves. So I think part of that was when we first raised that as a concern, it would have to have been to understand really what role Safari was playing with Feeding Our Future and with multiple sites, or whether they were their own site.
Thank you. I get it, but you think that's something that needs to be reviewed? I mean, in your opinion? That needs to be, you need to pay closer, someone in the department needs to be, not you specifically, that should be paid attention to a little more closely. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, I have staff that are specialists on that in terms of when things are raised or elevated to a risk. I don't know if Safari started with 5,000 or they worked up through to 5,000 over COVID. So it's the point of time that information became clear. Because again, when we raise red flags, we always go back to the sponsor to justify what's going on, why does this look different, why are they growing so fast? And our relationship is with the sponsor to clarify what's going on. And it could have been Feeding Our Future saying, you know, they're a vendor, they're providing meals to 20 sites, that's why it's a 5,000 count. They could have justified it in various different ways.
So a broader question. This hasn't happened in any, I mean, there's fraud all the time, and as we've established previously that it's been, organizations and agencies are acutely aware of it. They've given testimony and written books on it and pamphlets and documents, and there's just to start with a baseline higher risk concern here. So other states, I have not, in our reading, in our checking staff, we have not come across any other state that's had nearly this problem has not been nearly this scale, if at all. Other states like Oklahoma and Nebraska, Michigan took steps to prevent this. So it's just a little bit, you can see our challenge here. I hope you can understand our challenge. I understand the challenges you went through, but it hasn't been very clear as to what took place when somebody says the process worked, but yet $250 million has been stolen and 200 FBI agents are here. It begs a question, and something went wrong, and we're just simply trying to find it. So there's one question. Michigan, we found out when they did waivers, they had, I think it was Michigan, instituted integrity plan. Was there anything like an integrity plan when you issued these waivers for the sites and the sponsors?
Mr. Chair, the multi-site unaffiliated did have to provide a plan.
An integrity plan? So that plan would say, we'll leave it at that. Well, can I get we've asked, we'll go back to the document request. We've asked for these documents, a copy of the internal controls. We've sent it out via data request. Should be fairly easy to get, Mr. Uni. I mean, it should be sitting on a shelf or should be a PDF that we could see. Okay. So I'm going to jump back to Mr. Cordy for a second. Thank you, Ms. Herrera. Appreciate your time. So as we read through the documents and the complaint from it, Feeding Our Future, Mr. Corte, part of their claim, part of their filing was a lot of applications for sites had been delayed, maybe from a little as 1 day, even after the federal waiver was allowed in June, from 1 day to maybe even 60 days overdue. And I understand that was as of September 2020. Now, there's kind of two pieces, is that were those delays the cause of lack of administrative preparation, logjam, or was there suspicion of challenges to the program integrity? Does that make sense?
Yes, Mr. Chair. It was a combination of a number of things. I think part of it was, yes, the volume of site applications that we were receiving versus the number of staff we have assigned to do that work. But part of it was also just the form and status of the applications as we were receiving them. They would often be missing information, have errors, have addresses that matched addresses of sites that were already operating or were at locations that other sponsors were operating. So it was a number of
Thank you.
things.
So there could be a number of things.
Yes, sir.
You're doing the check, a volume of them came in, you couldn't get them through. So the judge eventually ruled against and said, approve them and pay them. But couldn't you have made a claim? Couldn't you have made a claim to the judge or someone? Say, look, we only have 3 people and there's 90 applications here.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we did make that argument to the judge. We were ordered to process applications in a reasonable amount of time. That amount of time was not defined. I think we have maybe different definitions between Feeding Our Future and ourselves. We did end up denying, I believe it was 143 or 147 applications that Feeding Our Future did provide. The judge just found that we took too much time in doing that. But we did ultimately deny a number of Feeding Our Future's applications through that process. And Ms. Herrera is reminding me that we did reassign 12 staff to applications in order to resolve any backlog that we did have as a result of increased application volume.
Thank you, Mr. Corte. Another quick question regarding that is, I think I have two questions, and we'll wrap this up. So why didn't MDE appeal the judge's ruling?
Sure.
I mean-
Mr. Chair, I can't speak to legal strategy other than to say an appeal, even if we did take it, would have taken, at least another 6 to 9 months to get a decision from the Court of Appeals on. So I think in this circumstance, it wouldn't have helped us in the amount of time that we needed to actually have action happen. And to be clear, also, the stop pay, the issue with the judge telling us to lift the stop pay was not officially in order by motion of the court. It was basically suggested to us that if it went to a motion, we would lose it and therefore be accountable for attorney's fees as well, too. So that's part of the reason we actually couldn't appeal it if we wanted to, because there wasn't a formal order to appeal.
So the judge didn't order you to pay, just you decided through circumstances and tactics and strategy that the department would just pay before the court ordered to pay.
The judge indicated that if he were asked to issue an order to lift the stop pay, that he would have to do so.
Okay. So again, jump back a little bit to Feeding Our Future and the initial application. When they were initially approved in 2018, again, I mentioned it was signed by Miss Amy Bach, July of 18. The conditions, they had no financial background. They had no financial history, Mr. Corte. They had no financial history, but they were approved as a sponsor in spite of having received at least preliminary indications that there might be challenges and problems with their administration and with the character and integrity of Ms. Bach, and they had no financial background, and they were approved to give oversight to all those sites.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I'll be an open question.
Thank you for the opportunity to clarify that, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned, there was some litigation that happened earlier prior to that with another multi-site sponsor, Partners in Nutrition, which Ms. Bach worked for at the time. The attorney that represented that organization is the same attorney who represented Feeding Our Future. And initially, we denied Partners in Nutrition's application because we did not feel that they had the financial history in order to operate as a sponsor. They took that to administrative appeal. It ultimately went up to the Court of Appeals, which ruled for Partners in Nutrition at that time, and ultimately went back to the district court where we settled the case. And the precedent was then set that if somebody applies without that financial backing, we couldn't deny them solely for that reason.
I find it hard to believe, Mr. Corte, an editorial comment on my part, that the federal government or any other state agency would say, we're going to approve you, we're going to approve, you must approve organizations that may commit fraud. All your internal controls, forget them. I have a hard time believing, in fact, when I was reading through the federal code, it said, no, you can't do that. But you're saying that a judge in the court ordered the department to just approve them. That might be the case, but I have a hard time believing that you could or should be ordered, or it's reasonable for anybody to believe that an organization without any financial history is approved to sponsor numerous sites where tens of hundreds of millions of dollars would flow through. And at that time, we didn't know how much, but money would flow through it. And then it would be charged with representing the sites and reporting on the sites, and then the department takes a handoff approach. Thank you for that time, Mr. Corte. Ms. Herrera, you said, I just heard that 143 applications for sites were denied. Do you know off the top of your head how many sites you did approve in that 1 year time period?
Mr. Chair, no, I would not have that number.
Could you get that to us?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Corte, Ms. Herrera, Mr. Uni, Mr. Topol, been very generous with your time and patience. I appreciate that, but I must say, we're not very much closer to getting to where we need to be as a legislative body and understanding for the people that this was properly managed. I look forward to receiving the site applications. We look forward to seeing a copy of the internal controls. In the near future, and we can review them at a next hearing we have. So, one moment. Do the remaining members have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I wish we had had more time to hear from the other members of the committee. But with that said, I just want to clarify, when we hear the phrase from other testifiers that the process worked, is it safe to say what they're saying is there was suspicions, there was a red flag that went up, and the department terminated funding? That's what people mean when they say the process worked, correct?
Mr. Corte?
Mr. Chair and Senator Swedzinski, yes, I think at the ultimate end, the funding was terminated and it was shut off. I think if we had not been constrained in the way that we were by USDA and the courts, that we could have done it sooner.
Thank you.
Thank you. One more.
And yeah, I'm just sitting here, so there's two parallel investigations going on right now, right? One is ours and one is the federal government's. Maybe I'm editorializing now. But what I'm not understanding is it just seems like that the federal investigation with the supremacy clause of the Constitution, could it be argued that we are in the way of a more important investigation being conducted by the federal government? Or is this just a mind thing that we can't even answer? I don't know. It's interesting, though. And I do want to say, Ms. Herrera, your comment about how much you're enjoying this process is the highlight of my day. So I don't know if that's a rhetorical question or if somebody wants to answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Corte, you want to give that a shot?
Mr. Chair, I'm not a constitutional law expert, so I wouldn't venture into the supremacy clause or whether this investigation conflicts with that.
Thank you,
Higher minds than mine.
Thank you, Mr. Corte. I'll just say this, and then we'll close and let everybody get on their way. But the department previously stated on the 4th and on the 6th, when I asked directly, that they're not under investigation by the federal government or by anybody else. That's number one. So they're not under investigation. The number two thing is that we're not investigating anything outside the walls and operations of Minnesota Department of Education. It therefore follows that we're not violating those things, with few exceptions of asking about details about any interviews that the FBI, they may have had with the FBI or other counsel. So our focus has been strictly on internal controls and process. And I love my colleague, but I can't wrap my head, and maybe I'm not I know I'm not as smart as you, Mr. Corte, but I can't get my head around the idea that the process worked, but $300 million was stolen. What happens if it doesn't work, Senator Swedzinski? That's rhetorical. What happens if the process wasn't working? 600 million? So you open that door, and I'm not accusing you, but we're trying to find out what the internal controls were as a duty of this legislative body and a responsibility to the citizens. We have to find out to restore the credibility of the department and fix the problem. And I would hope within the weeks and months ahead that the department will come forward with a plan to us to say, here's what we have done and here's what we're doing. But I know the answer to it. Well, it's ongoing investigation, we can't do it. But I suspect we're going to see the internal controls, and I might be very happy with that. So, again, thank you for the time. Thank you for indulgence. Thank you, Mr. Topol. Thank you, Mr. Corte. Thank you, Ms. Herrera. Thank you, Mr. Uni. Commissioner, thank you for the time and patience and indulgence as we work through this, but just trying to get as much information we can to fix the problem. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.